Hey, Jesse.
Good afternoon, Dr. Beatty. How are you?
Oh, hello.
Hello. You should now be able to share your video too if you want to test that real quick.
Perfect.
A few people
Yes.
who got an early seat today, one who looks like they have a familiar name.
Then he will be laughing when he sees that picture of he and my mom from like 40 years ago.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so I just registered and then came in through the regular
I'm
links.
glad that that worked out. As long as I'm here in here already, it should let you do that. But if you get here before me, you have to go in the other way.
Well, I think that might have been what happened. I logged on a little bit earlier than 3:40 and it was like, now you need the code. And it yesterday it asked me for the code and I had to go
Okay.
get it. And then that worked. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
I'm
I'm
gonna
glad you're here.
yeah, I'm gonna play with my background here for a
Sounds good.
second. Okay, that's better. That's better. We don't need everyone seeing that I still have my Christmas decorations up behind
My
me.
Christmas cards are still behind me, all my holiday cards.
Hey, it's only January 11th, right?
Exactly.
All right, so let me find my presentation. Okay, and then I just wanted you to know because it looked different than yesterday. I just added positive emotions that you bring to your classroom and student interactions. And then I just added perceived or documented to encourage people to talk about their strengths, even if they're not, assessed.
I love it.
All right, let's see. All right,
We
look,
are good.
look good. The
Oh,
button.
Marcia, I am from cold Wisconsin, but I'm joining you from toasty Dallas. Stay warm. We have some early arrivers. Yay. Sorry, Ellen, I did not mean to interrupt.
Oh, no worries.
All right, looks good. So we can take our videos down and I will see you at the top of the hour.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. Thank you to those of you who are here early. Please feel free to share in the chat where you're from, as Marcia did, and give us a weather forecast because I hear this week things are going to be changing drastically in various parts of the country. I mentioned I'm in Dallas and it's warm today, but I think it's going to be a low of 9 degrees on Sunday. So who knows what the weather will be. So love to hear where you're from, chat with your colleagues. You got here nice and early. We will be back at the top of the hour. Get comfortable. Can't wait to see you then. Hello, everyone. We will begin at the top of the hour. I'm showing that it's 12:55 Pacific time. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you got here early, thanks for coming and getting a good seat. Feel free to chat with your colleagues as you're getting comfortable. To open your chat window, click at the bottom toolbar at the lower end of your screen, and the chat icon should launch that chat. We do encourage you to say hello, chat with the other participants while we wait to begin, and do be sure that your chat is set to everyone so we can all see it. As a quick announcement, as indicated in our registration for this gathering, by attending the Zoom webinar, you do acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. Grab yourself a cup of tea, water, or your beverage of choice, and we will begin soon. Ellen, I'll ask you to go to the next slide, please.
Trying.
Thank you. Before we begin, as indicated in the registration for this gathering by attending the Zoom webinar, you acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. We know you have many choices when selecting your professional development activities, and there are some amazing opportunities here at the University of Arizona Global Campus and beyond. We are happy that you chose to join us today as the UAGC Department of Education and Liberal Arts proudly presents to you Ed Talks. I'm Dr. Jessie Upshaw, and I'm honored to lead the Professional Development Committee of the Department of Education and Liberal Arts here in the UAGC College of Arts and Sciences. I'll be your host this afternoon. Today, we launched the 10th annual Ed Talks series. For those of you that are new to Ed Talks, this is not your traditional professional development webinar. Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever-popular way of sharing concepts through personal storytelling. Our 2024 Ed Talk series is entitled Flourishing in Open Access Education, which examines supporting students and colleagues in open access environments through the lens of positive psychology. Each story takes the work of Martin Seligman's Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being, and considers the relationship between well-being and the contemporary culture of open access or open enrollment higher education. Here to explore and extend our journey towards supporting well-being with her story of well-being and open access higher education is Dr. Ellen Beatty. As you listen to Ellen's story, you might listen for your call to action to share your practices that promote growth and supporting well-being in your classroom and interactions with your students or your colleagues. Or perhaps you will find a new practice that her story or our discussion sparks for you. Ellen, will you come on camera and say hello while I introduce you? Thanks for being here. You're on mute, by the way. Great to have you here.
Sorry, Jessie. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad that you're here, Ellen. Dr. Ellen Beatty is an educational leader, innovator, and consultant specializing in positive academic leadership, online teaching and learning, and neuroscience. As an assistant professor in the PhD in Education program at the University of Arizona Global Campus, she strategically supports doctoral learners' success through research mentorship and an active research agenda. Prior to joining our university, Dr. Beatty advanced into central leadership roles as Director of Student Services, Director of Literacy, and Chief of Adult Instructional Services across private, public, and government entities. In 2020, Online Learning Consortium recognized Dr. Beatty's commitment to diversity and inclusion with the Leadership in Equity and Inclusion in Online Learning Award. Dr. Beatty's teaching began in 2007 and currently spans undergraduate through doctoral learners in the content areas of student success, educational leadership, and educational technology. Her intense focus on creating conditions where all students can thrive earned her a finalist spot for a Distinguished Faculty Member of the Year award. Dr. Beatty's research mingles cognitive and behavioral neuroscience, positive psychology, and evidence-based wellness practices. Her most recently peer-reviewed published work, The Power of the Positive, Enhancing Online Student Engagement for Adult Literacy Learners, is highlighted in Adult Literacy Education, the International Journal of Literacy, Language, and Numeracy. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Beatty. Ellen, I am now going to ask that we remove our videos so we can get started after a few brief reminders. Next slide, please. As a reminder, Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever-popular way of sharing personal stories for only 18 minutes of monologue. We do this because we want to hear your stories, and we can best do that by sharing our stories. Our goal here is not necessarily to teach you anything new, as you are already an expert in your field. Our goal is to perhaps motivate you to try something new in your approach to helping your students succeed. Our storytelling approach is geared to not take a lot of your time, but rather to simply set the stage for an interactive conversation and perhaps encourage you to encourage your students in some new way. As I mentioned in the beginning of our time today, our 2024 Ed Talk series, Reflection and Extension, is inspired by the principles and work of Martin Seligman and his book, Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being. At the end of our Ed Talk today, we look forward to hearing your story of what you are doing or will do in your classroom or educational setting. After Dr. Beatty's story, we will invite all participants to share your reflection and practices. So with that said, audience members, if you could please hold your comments and chat to the end as we listen to Ellen's story. Let's get started. Ellen, the microphone is yours.
Imagine a world where colleges are not just centers of academic learning, but are also thriving communities of psychological and emotional well-being, where every student, staff, faculty, and leader feels seen, heard, and valued. Many of us chose careers in higher education, not merely to help students earn degrees, but to be a part of the transformational process of education. Today, we face serious challenges of mental health on college campuses, and yet we have more tools and knowledge than ever. Today, I want to talk about how the integration of positive psychology into our culture can transform us from places of learning into sanctuaries of growth, resilience, and well-being. As we start, please note the reflection questions on the screen. In the next few minutes, I will share a story of how positive psychology was embedded unknowingly into my early educational experiences. This session includes a challenge for all of us to create an environment where care is not just a concept, but the very foundation of everything we do. Let's start with Bert and Ernie. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm equipped with my Sesame Street lunchbox, my Woodland Creatures pencil box, knee-high socks, and my wooden name tag. That's my younger sister, Alexis, standing beside me. When I look at this picture, I see a young girl eager to take on the world. And by take on the world, I mean that I wanted to grow up to be a solid gold dancer. You remember Saturday nights, gold lame outfits, dancing to the top hits. You could say that these two young girls were groomed for academic and professional success. We grew up in a small suburban Pennsylvania town nestled in the rolling hills just north of Pittsburgh, a place where everyone knows your name, crime is virtually non-existent, and family values are paramount. If you were an observer, you would see children playing in neighborhood parks, families taking leisurely evening strolls, and a tree-lined downtown filled with local small businesses. The quintessential American small town, perfect for raising a family, a community where life is lived with a sense of connectedness, tranquility, and mutual respect, the kind of place where you can leave your doors unlocked. Our parents were the embodiment of selflessness, deeply committed to our holistic development, and both educators. My father, a well-respected and much-loved high school math teacher and basketball coach, retired from a 36-year public school career and now teaches here at UAGC. I still get compliments from high school friends about how engaging he made learning. My mother, initially a middle school reading specialist, and after taking a career pause to raise us, later devoted her caring and inquisitive nature to the world of early childhood. Our home was filled with books, and we gathered at the dinner table every night as a family. Beyond academics, they promoted our social and emotional development, supporting our participation in endless extracurricular pursuits like dance competitions, voice lessons, and theater group performances. In that Mr. Roger-like neighborhood, they instilled a love of learning and curiosity about the world around us. We learned the value of teamwork, integrity, hard work, and resilience. They taught us to think beyond ourselves, instilling empathy, kindness, and a sense of responsibility to others. By most accounts, my sister and I thrived in our early life, striving to make our parents proud. And following high school, I did what most children of two-parent educators did. I set my sights confidently on college. I chose a small private liberal arts school just west of my hometown. At Worcester, I found a vibrant community that valued the diversity of thought, background, and experience, one that challenged my preconceived notions and gently nudged me out of my comfort zone. I'll never forget those first few weeks. A first-year roommate who was completely opposite of me in every way. My friend circle included a kind-hearted boy from Bulgaria and a super savvy girl who grew up splitting her time between India and Oman, both with worldviews so far beyond my own. But Worcester allowed us to revel in our uniqueness. We were empowered and celebrated for who we were and what we brought to our collective college experience. Worcester's greatest asset was their faculty. Reflecting back, they did far more than teach. They challenged our assumptions and beliefs, encouraged critical thinking, and fostered a spirit of relentless curiosity. I found many role models there, including my economics advisor, Dr. Gail Greenfield. She supported my senior independent study thesis, a correlation study measuring the relationship between CEO compensation and corporate profits during times of economic downturn. Dr. Greenfield was everything I respected, academically fierce, a Chapel Hill graduate who was so professionally accomplished at a young age. She held students to high academic standards, yet in a kind and encouraging manner. She believed in me when I didn't. I left Worcester armed with not only a degree in practical independent research experience, but a more inclusive mindset, a deep appreciation for the richness that diversity brings to both academia and life. The lessons I learned and the experiences I gathered shaped my evolving worldview, guiding me in a world far more complex and beautiful than a younger version of me ever imagined. In the past few minutes, I've painted a picture of my early life, or at least the Instagram-worthy elements. Notice what's not been included yet. My early life included many, don't you dare put that on Facebook, moments. They range from now comical stories of less than stellar attempts at 8th grade algebra, complete failure trying to learn to play the piano, desperate measures to pass college calculus, or how about the time my parents left my sister and I home for a few hours in the afternoon, during which time we managed to break the kitchen sink, flood the first floor of the house, and proceeded to call 911. But hey, for a 14-year-old, definitely seemed like an emergency. Of course, there were also painful, heart-wrenching times, like losing family members too soon, or the tragic deaths of young friends. Those off-Facebook memories didn't just involve academics or personal life. After graduating from Worcester, I took my first real job, a recruiting company that specialized in transitioning military officers to corporate employment. I was so excited that I overlooked that my skills and personality weren't a good fit. I didn't know anything about the military lifestyle, hated talking on the phone, and sales, not my thing. I was let go a year later. And if you're expecting a miraculous rising from the ashes story, forget it. Instead, I ran away. I went to Hawaii, and I tried making being a beach bum a full-time job. Ask me to see my shell art sometime. Negativity and disappointment can be invaluable teachers. Those experiences tested my inner strength and adaptability, but grounded me in compassion and the things that connect us. Specifically, I learned that failure on the first attempt could often lead to success on the next. I learned that we are often judged far more on how we react to a situation than the actual situation. I learned that we're more alike than different. I learned to control what I could control and to let go of the rest. The value in my upbringing wasn't that everything seemed idyllic. It was that it allowed me to grow into a confident, self-assured, resilient young woman who wasn't completely afraid of failure. Even my entry into higher education wasn't exactly as I pictured it. I applied for a position as an enrollment advisor for an unnamed online college. For weeks, I prepared and rehearsed answers to expected questions. I had my highlights all queued up. Born to two educators, a transformational college experience, how my skills perfectly aligned with the job description. The day of the interview, I suited up and I walked confidently onto the campus in San Marco, California. And guess what? I nailed those questions. All that preparation paid off. And as the interview was wrapping up, almost as an oversight, my interviewer asked, and I quote, "Ellen, one last question. How will a girl who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth be able to connect to our non-traditional students?" Silence. Although I am sure that words eventually came out of my mouth, all I'll ever remember was the question. I left disheartened. How could I have overlooked the fact that I knew little about the challenges of being a non-traditional college student? When I was at Worcester, I was 18, didn't work, and the only things I was balancing were boys and books. A few days later, my phone rang, and I was offered that job. I knew my success hinged on connecting to non-traditional students. I gathered insights from different departments, joined every professional organization that I could find, and became a student myself. Soon, the challenges that non-traditional students faced became clear. But it still seemed to be a mystery why success came more easily to some than others. Or, in the words of last year's Ed Talk book author, my colleague Dr. Newton Miller, why some seeds don't grow. What created the drive, motivation, self-discipline, and mindsets of successful students, and more importantly, what could faculty and staff do to support it? I returned to one of our reflection questions. Why do you work in education? In my younger days, a career in education was far from my mind, yet it found me. Sometimes we end up exactly where we're meant to. I've come to the realization that I had an internal desire to provide for others what was provided for me. Education was my way to serve others and to give everyone the opportunity to thrive in an environment that could ultimately change the trajectory of their lives. Now that brings us to a good question. How exactly do you accomplish that? How do you structure programming in classrooms that give rise to engaged students meeting learning objectives? It didn't take me long to realize that at least a partial answer lies in the emerging field of positive psychology. Positive psychology may seem like an odd professional interest for a former economics major, but the premises of the field directly relate to education. Rather than the traditional focus of psychology to fix people, the field emphasizes how to encourage individuals, groups, and communities to flourish and thrive. Martin Seligman championed these ideas in the late 90s. He proclaimed that psychology is not just the study of weakness and damage, it is the study of strength and virtue. It is about nurturing what is best within us. In this short conversation, I can only hope it sparked your curiosity about what positive psychology can mean to supporting open access adult learners. 3 keys I want to share with you today. 1, the field is grounded on the premise that all people can flourish and thrive, not certain people, all people. That ability is not determined by our past or our biological makeup. 2, positive emotions can be intentionally created to produce an upward spiral of positivity, resulting in human flourishing. 3, positive psychology emphasizes that resilience can be built through recognizing and applying character strengths, building meaningful social connections, and celebrating achievements. One aspect of positive psychology with a direct connection to student success is character strengths. Robust research concludes that when we work to our character strengths, we are more engaged in our work, produce better results, and are more satisfied with life. Simply, strengths build confidence, and that confidence connects strongly to resilience. The challenge is that most of us would have trouble articulating our character strengths. What makes us uniquely us? One way to discover strengths is through an assessment. Values in Action is an assessment grown out of the work of Martin Seligman. My results from 2017 and 2022 identified creativity as my top signature strength. It's an idea that I initially resisted, but with a reframed definition of the concept, I soon found myself embodying my creative self in my teaching. My limited view of creativity didn't allow me to see the value in being creative with ideas. You see, my strength in creativity was hidden under my day-to-day activities that I accomplished. Through a simple assessment, I had a new vision of myself, a new understanding of how I could bring value to others. The educator in me could not help but think about the benefits of supporting the strengths of students as a path to academic confidence and resilience. You may sense that I am overly optimistic and enthusiastic about positive psychology. Yes, indeed. It's because I believe in the power of the educators. My earliest teachers, my parents, exemplified positive psychology in their approach. Positive emotions, resilience, adaptability, strong social connections, feelings of accomplishment. Those were cornerstones of my young life, and they were powerful in getting these two young girls where they are today. I believe that our open access adult students need exactly what positive psychology can provide: a framework for flourishing. It's never too late to flourish. We can intentionally cultivate these concepts at any stage of life. When students flourish, they persist and graduate. I often reflect back on that interview question. How will a girl who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth be able to connect to our non-traditional students? That question launched my career in higher education. I came to value and respect the challenging road that many of our students had faced. And here's the reality: they can't get it right until we get it right. At UAGC, the culture of care may be an initiative, but to me, the environment that I want to create is grounded in positive psychology. In fact, I firmly believe, while not conveyed as such, creating a culture of care is all about positive psychology. The culture of care isn't about pretending to care when we don't. It's not about mandatory announcements, generous late policies, or endless extensions. It's about creating an environment where all can thrive and flourish. As educators, there are many things outside of our control. We cannot negate students' life challenges. We cannot right the wrongs they may have experienced. We cannot make their early life more positive, but we can carefully craft their experience today. Martin Seligman's theory of well-being can shape our environment and ground our student interactions. Positive emotions can be intentionally crafted in announcements to boost enthusiasm, motivation, and open minds. Engagement can be fostered with thoughtful and relevant connections from the curriculum to the real world. Trust and psychological safety build relationships that enhance the learning environment. And progress and accomplishments can instill a sense of pride and be celebrated. The skills of well-being can be taught and cultivated. People who exhibit higher levels of well-being also report greater self-control, better self-regulation, better coping skills, and better sleep. And all of those connect directly to cognitive performance and academic success. Positive psychology is a science, an actionable science. So today I am making a request. It's simple and it'll take you approximately 10 minutes. I'm asking you to take the Values in Action Character Strengths Assessment. Taking this assessment will allow you to pause in everything that you do for others and do something for yourself. You may walk away with a new perspective on what makes you uniquely you, or you may solidify what you already know. And while you do it for yourself, it will benefit those that you come in contact with. Those who actively engage in their character strengths are more likely to engage in strength spotting or recognizing strengths in others. And what an amazing thing to do. Tapping into your strengths may encourage you to explore other positive psychology interventions. You may start, like I do, to see the UAGC culture of care as a system-wide positive psychology intervention. The value isn't in the care or the emotion. That's the economist in me talking. It's about taking intentional and deliberate actions to help others flourish. Cultures are not built from organizational initiatives. They are created by people. So let's recommit to not just educating our student, but to empowering them. We can meet them where they are, but as a wise friend and colleague reminds me, we do not want to leave them there. That's positive psychology in action. Through that lens, we have the opportunity to redefine our institution as a vibrant hub of well-being, resilience, and positive growth for all of us. This year, our Ed Talk series will examine the components of positive psychology through the work of Martin Seligman. Next month, you'll get to hear from Dr. Debbie Carpenter speaking about bliss. Oh, and be sure to have your strengths assessment completed by then. All year, I know that you will hear inspirational and motivational stories from our slate of presenters. But I hope you'll gain something else too. Actionable insights to infuse every classroom, every program, and every student interaction from the foundation of positive psychology. Together, we can create an educational environment where every student not only learns, but thrives and can become a beacon of positive change in their community and in their world. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you so much for laying that groundwork for us to consider the principles and application of supporting well-being in ourselves and each other as we examine how to create learning experiences that help our students truly flourish and thrive. I love that you met us where we are, but didn't leave us there. I'm ready for this conversation so we can elevate and discuss where we're going. For those of you here today, as we open up the chat lines to consider your takeaways from today's story, let's frame our discussion. What are you currently doing in your practice to support student success through this lens? And what are you inspired to do next? Ellen has posted some questions here for you, and I'm going to read them out loud just in case you don't have your screen handy or are needing that audio. Why did you choose a career in education? What positive emotions do you bring to your classrooms and student interactions? How can you use your strengths, whether they're perceived or documented, to support UAGC's culture of care? Please start sharing your impression, your ideas, or perhaps your new approach in the chat, and be sure that your chat is set to everyone. We would also really love to hear from you. So to share using your audio, simply raise your hand using the hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and then you'll be given an opportunity to unmute your microphone and share your story or reflection that way. We definitely invite you to join the conversation now to inspire others with your story. And Ellen, you're already getting some great insight from the chat, but I just want to say just the mindset piece and laying that foundation, how you shared the PERMA concept. And I know we're going to go over that more and more as we go through some of the Ed Talk, the positive emotions and engage. You're going to have to remind me of all of I have it written down, but my brain, the engagement, the positive relationships, the positive emotions, the meaning, and the accomplishment, how those pieces, and you already started to share some of those examples of what we do in the classroom. And I loved thinking about the positive relationships. What am I doing and what can I do? And looking at the science behind this. So thank you so much for laying this foundation. I'm so inspired.
You're welcome. Dr. Martin Seligman decided to research what helps humans flourish, and the theory of well-being and the acronym of PERMA is exactly the elements that his research has shown to be influential in human flourishing.
So it looks like you have some things in common with Marcia here. Her family is in education and full of support. Never went into it like business, just turning to support the students. And I think that captures the core of what we're trying to set the stage here, looking beyond the curriculum to the students. You also have a comment from someone here with a very familiar name, Dr. Beatty.
Someone who might have noticed himself in one of those pictures.
So Dr. Beatty's father is here with us, as she mentioned. He's just here at UAGC for us. Well, I thank you for mentioning this, that Ellen's self-analysis is inspiring us all to do the same. And on that note, I am going to share the link right now, but please hold off and don't go take it. Stay with us in the discussion for just a few more minutes. And I'll share it again at the end. But if you want to bookmark it as you're thinking of your thoughts, here's the link to that assessment that Ellen mentioned, and it will be shared again toward the end.
I see Dr. Olson Stewart has mentioned that it's important to consider that her education and background is different. than her students, yet still real, valid, and applicable to making a variety of connections with students. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. I think it goes back to that interview question. I had completely overlooked that. That was a stage in my life when I didn't think that other people didn't grow up exactly as I had. It was an eye-opening experience, and certainly 20 years later, I'm still reflecting on it in front of an entire group of colleagues.
I think Sherry Ketchum shares something very similar, that college was transformative, and how she conceptualized herself, the world around her, and the place and her place in it, and passing on those transformative powers to others. They can become self-aware and engaged students, and I think that really hits home to what you were discussing with the science supports there, Dr.
And I see Michael mentioned that he got into education because of a positive influence of a high school teacher. That's amazing, Michael. Seeing the impact, growth, and learning through positive relationships with students is what drives him every day.
I love that. Mary Ann Broner shares that she didn't choose a career in education. She believes education chose her. Before transitioning into higher education, working with youth in the inner city, and started a journey in education. And I think, that we're all here to educate our students, and educating them on well-being in addition to the curriculum sets that stage for, what did you say, the flourishing and thriving component, going beyond what will you do with it and how do you go from here.
Jennifer mentions positive emotions that she brings to the classroom, ones that she illustrates both personally and professionally: gratitude, appreciation, interest, confidence, and excitement to learn. It's wonderful, Jennifer. Thank you for mentioning that. I think one of the important parts about positive psychology is that they see positive emotions as independent from negative emotions. So positive emotions don't just happen in the absence of negative emotions. They have to be carefully crafted and honed to be able to be influential in life. So we need to be aware of what we're presenting out to the world. And one of the ways that we can do that in the classroom, through imagery, through color, through the size of our text, through videos, through making ourselves approachable and friendly. There's a lot of ways to do it. It's not just one prescribed way to bring positive emotions into your classroom.
Love all of those concepts. Marcia and Jerry are sharing some commonalities with students here, and relating to some of our students coming from similar environments, single parenting, or being non-traditional students before getting a degree, giving that empathy and that experience to it, where we can bring that as we're building relationships with our students. Bill, you're always bringing your positivity here, paying it forward and inspiring others, encouraging as a lead coach to others, and sharing your knowledge and skills, experiences to lift and equip and nurture adult learners to their transformation. I think that hits the core of those concepts as well, that we hope to continue to discuss both in the theory of it, but also in practical applications as we go through this session and the rest of the sessions this year.
So many great conversations going on in the chat box. I see a Pittsburgh connection with Suzanne, who mentions that she sees education as a real way to level the playing field and open doors that are closed to many due to different backgrounds. Thank you for sharing that, Suzanne.
Candace shares the key here, that it was a professor that gave the encouragement to finish strong when discouraged, and then paying it forward again, being the one who does that for our students. So, Dr. Beatty discussed discouragement and hitting barriers as an opportunity for growth, but without us there as professors to support that, we can really make a difference in creating an environment to give students that space to be discouraged, but to grow. See a quote here from Bill Davis, passion matters. Write that one down for 2024. See lots of great stories of how people came to education. I'm loving learning the different paths we've all taken to get here.
And a comment about the power of laughing and smiling and the goal to not only teach students, but to bring joy to them. It's beautiful, Michael.
Dr. Denise Maxwell mentions loving the phrase that our education is a gift. Carrying that approach forward with our students is important as we support them in visualizing and achieving their goals. Sherry asks a great question here. How might we motivate students to engage with these highfalutin transformative ideals when so many lack the time and energy to get there? Are those goals the result of a type of privilege in and of itself?
Well, that's a challenging question, isn't it?
I do not have the answer for that, but I love to see anyone that would love to respond to that or set the stage as we reflect on that. That balance of all of the things our students have in their lives. They're balancing multiple full-time roles, whatever they may be in different combinations. And again, those ideals and not having the time or energy, how can we make the difference then? And where does that outside the curriculum, the positive psychology aspects that you were speaking of, hopefully we can find, as we discussed today and through the rest of the series, we can find some great tools to continue to support in those ways. And I'd love to hear in the chat how anyone else is addressing those.
I do think it speaks directly to the positive relationships from Martin Seligman's PERMA theory. Our students have challenges, multiple jobs, family responsibilities, things going on, but so do all of us. And I think one of those leveling of the playing field is just helping them to understand that we're just real people too. And we have life events that come up, and we have emergencies with pets, and we have power outages just like they do, and being understanding of that, because at the end of the day, we're all human. But excellent question for reflection. Thanks, Sherry.
Agreed. And Clifford had a response as well, Sherry. And you're right, definitely for reflection, not one to take lightly. But Clifford's response is also thinking that though the idea that transformational learning costs energy is one that he's not convinced of, he thinks it imparts energy, and a sense of wonder, of magical discovery can further inquiry. And that's definitely one positive emotion that I'm getting from your response to that, Clifford. Well, I hate to do this, but all great things must come to an end. So let's all continue to remember Sherry's thoughtful question, because it may come up again next time. But before you go, we would love to provide you a couple of resources and some more information. Ellen, if you can go to the next slide. We do want to provide you the link to our Ed Talk certificates. Please reference the chat box, which I'm about to post, where you can find the link, or you can also access it through the QR code if you can access your screen. Here you'll find the this Ed Talk video and our Ed Talks video archives, along with certificates of participation, as well as the link to the strength survey that Dr. Beatty referenced in her story today. And you'll also find the link in today's invitation to our Ed Talks homepage. Before we go, we also want to acknowledge again the work of of Martin Seligman for inspiring this series. Please consider finding yourself a copy of Flourish, A Visionary New Understanding of Happiness and Well-Being. And please mark your calendars for the second Thursday of most months from now until October, same time, same place, to continue our series and our discussion. Next up, next month, please come back and see us on February 8th as Dr. Deborah Carpenter shares her story, Creating a Bliss Blueprint, alliteration there. We thank you so much for joining us today, and a huge thank you again to Dr. Ellen Beatty for sharing with us her inspiration for the next steps in supporting our students and each other. On behalf of our department chair, Dr. Denise Maxwell, and UAGC's College of Arts and Sciences Department of Education and Liberal Arts, we wish you a safe and healthy and impactful new year, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.